you so much for joining this demonstration of our payment, settlement, and reconciliation screen. And this flow diagram gives a visualization of what the product does. We'll run over this for about 2 minutes, and then we'll go right into the demonstration with Matt. The way this is designed is in the green box, we have a website or multiple websites. And we have one customer that actually has 40 different Shopify sites using the tool. But within the website, one will have multiple merchants. In this example, PayPal, Amazon, and a credit card supplier. And the idea is that orders are taken in the website on a daily basis. And those orders then flow through the Acumatica ERP represented in the blue box. And Acumatica does the booking and the shipping and the invoicing, et cetera, and processes those orders. So let's assume that we have 1,000 PayPal orders in a day, 2,000 Amazons, and 3,000 credit cards. Those orders on a daily basis will then flow into the processor's systems for fee assessment. So maybe PayPal and those 1,000 orders ends up as a deposit in the bank of, say, $14,250.12, whereas Amazon's 2,000, so maybe that's $29,315. And we said credit card was 3,000, so maybe that's $32,112. And obviously, that means that we've got 3,000, 2,000, and 1,000 orders associated with those three single deposits. And those deposits may or may not be absent of fees, depending upon your terms of the processor. What PSR does is it captures those deposit files, automatically captures them, and brings it into a matching engine. Simultaneously, we capture from Acumatica all of the orders associated with those three deposits. Those orders are stored in a clearing account. And mind you, this day we had 1 plus 2 plus 3, a total of 6,000 orders, but the next day we have another 6,000, and the day before we had 6,000. And then we've got credits and debits and returns and all of that. So this file isn't exactly the utopian 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 orders. It's all that goes on in an ongoing operation with returns and the like. Regardless, PSR is designed to capture the files from the credit processors, capture the orders from Acumatica, automatically match, and automatically A, make the deposit into Acumatica, B, settle that deposit so that the invoice can be cleared, all the debits and credits for the income statement, et cetera, can be generated, and what is typically a very manually intensive process gets done in a very automated fashion. Our experience is we usually match around 95, 97, 98, 99, sometimes 100% of the time. When we don't match, it might be because of like a tax rounding error. Maybe an order got split, and because it got split, the tax that was associated at the initial time of the sale got split into two, and then with rounding situations, there's a mismatch between the order in Acumatica and its accompanying deposit. And that gets managed within our system. The user is given those items that don't match in Acumatica to make the process of doing the 100% debit and credit connection all the more productive. So that's an introduction to the product. Any questions?
None from the mission team.
Very good. Matt, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, mission can see it.
Beautiful. Okay. So PSR, we set it up first by listing out all of your sites. You may have one site, you may have many. Here's one with a single site. As Jim was indicating, we have other customers with tons and tons of sites. Once we've established your sites, we then pick out what settlement types or what payment providers you're using and enable those. Okay. Once we've established that, we can then, by site, by payment type, then pick up and simply add settings and instructions, such as these guys have different entry types on their deposits, that we have instructions to put all of the data that's going to move you from gross to net, and it's all fully customizable. And once that's in the system, we flip a switch. And that switch is going to start collecting settlements. And in this case, I'm showing a multi-site, so you can see the different sites, a multi-site setup. And it looks like they have lots of new, they're still processing, lots and lots of new settlements. Now, these are settlements that are awaiting processing to go into your Acumatica. Okay. Questions thus far?
Nope, no questions.
Good. So if we look at this, and I'm just going to pull up, let's see if we can find one that's not a lot broken. When a deposit goes in perfectly, you see this NA. That's because it means there's no exceptions. It means it went in clean. If there was an exception, it would list the batch. And in this case, we have tons and tons of them, and I'll show you their bank deposit screen right now is running right now, actually, as we speak. And if you look at this, what I want to point out is that each of these deposits has been created by an automation. These are all balanced, and they were actually released by automation. So this whole page of deposits, there was no human intervention to perform your cash accounting. And this number that you see here is the number that you will find on your bank statement. Thus, when you look at your the account to which you are clearing, when you do your bank rec, each of these numbers is going to directly correspond to an entry on the bank statement that you download. So all of the transfers from your clearing accounts into your bank account, as well as, and we'll just get, I guess, an example, all of the payments grossed out to 4,505 in this case for Shopify. And they had a charge total of $120.30. In this case, I can see that it automatically calculated and booked the $120.30 directly into fees, thereby getting you from gross to net. Again, looking at this with no human intervention whatsoever. Now, if I go back, we can look and we can see, okay, it doesn't always work out perfectly. Chloe here looks like she had to close a few last week, maybe. But when Jim talks about percentages, we're probably matching 100%, 90% of the time. And when we are off, we're talking about handfuls out of thousands of transactions. So I'll go on to another example. We look at another, sorry, let's clear this out. So you saw high volumes of deposits, right? Now we're going to look at just how the product scales. And I'm just going to go by amount. And the biggest deposit to date that this has ever done is 100,000 payments in a single deposit that it broke into, looks like 17 deposits, because Acumatica won't take 100,000 payments in one transaction. But it was able to actually do it without exceptions and create a $9.8 million single dollar payout. So when we look at how it operates, it's grabbing all of your data and it's cataloging it and keeping it. Then based on your settings, how you operate, and again, everything is a setting. It can run overnight. It can give you an extra day to process. The payout date for a provider might correspond differently depending on the country of the provider or holiday schedules. It understands all of that. It understands holiday schedules. So your deposit dates are literally to the date that they post in your bank, which to the penny are matching to your statements. This taking all of the clearing activities out of the hands of an accountant, with the exception of issues. Now, when we have issues, we still use the import bank transaction screen, and you can optionally put everything here, or you can just put exceptions. Everyone to date who has asked for everything here has subsequently said, no, I just want the exceptions. This is your work. This is if you're doing the cash accounting, this is your workspace. You come in and you look and you find, oh, okay, we had transactions that were missing. This is where we go back to operations. Hey, we don't have this payment or we don't have this refund, thus making this an exception-only manual process. If it doesn't exist, you'd be doing the same thing if you were in Excel. I'm going to stop. Any questions so far?
Yeah, Matt, if you don't mind, just go to one screen that shows the deposit amount where there was a mismatch, and so how the user would know, oh, I'm off $100 or whatever.
Oh, that's actually very easy.
Yeah.
If we go and look at a list of these, you can see that this is on hold. And you can see that the amount expected by Shopify was $7,254.73. My total amount is still at $7,407.37, thereby telling me that we are off. So these two are off. You can see that this reconciles, this reconciles. We even have a handy little column here that makes it even easier to see right off the bat. I can just filter on what's balanced or not balanced. With control totals, it's even cooler because it can, let's find somebody using control totals. Oh, this is even better. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. Okay. So you can see, I just want to know what has a delta that does not equal 0. And now I know, well, I guess that's not a good example because everything's matching. Good for a demo, but not good to show you the screen. So this is essentially the delta between your total amount and what your control total was. We know how much it is supposed to be deposited because the provider says, this is how much we're giving you, and then they subsequently give you a list of transactions. Those transactions may include fees. You may only operate with fees at the end of the month. Either way, this enables you to really only look at exceptions. So in a well-oiled machine, if your eCommerce connector and your Amazon connector and all of your different sources for order information and payment information, if they're clean, all of this is pretty much straight through processing and no human being has to touch it. If there's an issue, it tells you. If the dollars don't match, hey, your eCommerce connector is booked these 5 payments and they were all a penny off. It'll add them to the deposit, but it will also add them to your exceptions so that an accountant realizes, hey, I have 5 cents to go look for these 5 payments. And usually in the beginning that happens depending on who you contract or what your e-commerce platform is. But ultimately, those little things end up getting corrected in the Acumatica community or with your ISV that's providing the connection or your internal development team that's providing connection to maybe your custom website. And those sorts of things then push you to that really only looking at this infrequently and making it a fully turnkey, hands-off solution because you're not really having to do any of this work on your own. It is doing all of the repetitive, just find me my stuff, book it, get me my fees, book it, get me to the point where I can download my statement and then do my auto match. Done.
Debbie, Corey, great explanation, Matt. Debbie, Corey, do you have anything? Questions?
I mean, so this is Corey from Mission.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. I mean, so we use Shopify, and we clear through authorize.net, Amazon Pay, Affirm. I think we saw a bunch of those in there. So
Yep.
It seems like from that perspective, and we have tens of thousands of transactions a year, not quite into the millions, but tens of thousands for sure. So This seems like a great solution for that. I was curious. We also have a fairly significant presence and do a fairly significant number of transactions through Amazon. Is this applicable to the Amazon seller space, or is this limited to Shopify style websites or like custom style websites?
I'm going to show you. I pulled up one of my worst examples. These guys are doing Amazon. I pulled up an older one because they had originally had trouble with the way their connector worked, because it was multi-stepped. I think it went through from Shopify to a product called M2E, and then from maybe M2E to Acumatica, or maybe I have those flipped around. But the issues they were having were that by the time it got there, the tax or the shipping, things were a little off. Not only does it have the capability, and I'll show you this in a moment, have the capability of doing multi-line settlement, meaning your settlement file, if you're doing Amazon, one item in the order might be 9 lines. And that's really painful because you have to sum it up to figure out your gross. And then you have to figure out of the gross, what pieces are fees. Well, in this case, not only did we figure out the fees, but we figured out how to match up things like the principal and the shipping and the tax. And you can see in this order right here, we actually had to create a shipping and tax GL account associated with an entry type to reclass principal in real time so that the books really reflected what happened. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So it sounds like we bring those Amazon transactions, flow. We have a direct link, and Garrett can correct. Garrett, who manages all the tech stuff for us, internal and Mission, is sitting here, but we have a direct link via the Amazon API. Correct?
That's correct.
So I don't think we necessarily have that daisy chain feature that you're referring to, but it seems like it's a pretty direct connection.
It is a direct connection, although it is importing taxes, even though Amazon is remitting those taxes on our behalf. So we're not actually collecting that dollar value. So that does raise some questions on how this would handle that discrepancy. Would it just throw up errors for every single transaction, or?
So what that would do is in the Amazon settlement file, when they're remitting taxes, the order reflects a sales tax, and then it reflects a reversal of that sales tax in the settlement file. Basically, the easiest way to sort that out to make sure that we're always covering everything is to let it on and off. And what I mean is add them in, take them out. Or if it's 100%, just let it flow through without trying to readdress tax. This is all optional features. If your eCommerce connector and Acumatica are always in sync, and you know that, there's no need to have any special rules to reclass anything. I'm showing you this one to demonstrate the power of the rule-based engine behind it. Certainly, that all depends on your upstream processes. The cleaner the process, the less likely you need more exception handling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think if I could add some value, from my understanding, we support both Amazon as a processor, or payments by Amazon, but also fulfilled by Amazon. And in the case of fulfilled by Amazon, you will not only have things like the credit fee, but also things like fees for packaging a product, or gift wrapping a product, shipping the product, etc. And when Matt speaks to the rule-based engine, back to our initial drawing, the mapping tool that we have between Acumatica and the various processors is a tool that incorporates all the different fees and costs, etc. So we can map fulfilled by Amazon differently than we map Shopify, differently than map the other processors. So we have unlimited amount of fields that we can apply costs in terms of managing the gross to net. So if it's fulfilled by Amazon, typically you're going to have 7 or so fee types when you're managing the gross to net. Whereas if you're Shopify or OffNet on other processors, you've got 3 or 4. And our tool allows you to set up the different processors per our rules-based engine so that from the standpoint of how you hit your general ledger, you can assess the cost from gross to net in the way that you want. And then, of course, that gives you an idea of what the cost of credit's costing you when you compare Braintree to PayPal to Amazon, et cetera. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this was so this is Corey from Mission, but this is, a challenge. I actually built an Excel-based engine for reconciliations and having something internal. I was looking for a kind of an off-the-shelf product or something we could use. So that's how I discovered this. So I'm
right.
Uncomfortably familiar with all the things that you're referring to because I ended up having to build it myself external, and we just migrated to Acumatica in May, and we're just now completing our first kind of series of reconciliations, and it's I'm looking down the barrel of building a matching engine external again, and I'd like to avoid doing that. So that's right. What led us to.
If I may, the birth of this product in 2017 was Authorize.net and more specifically Amazon.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was our first.
Its root was in how aggravating those settlement files are from Amazon every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. They're awful.
And then, Matt, if you don't mind, one other just visualization that I'd like. In the header, can you show the deposit amount and a mismatch on the deposit amount, that one banking screen? I don't know I forget the Matt.
Yeah.
Not the 5.
Let me find what's broken.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy, I guess, take the first one I find. We seem to be
so then if you could walk through the numbers in a day in the life, right?
So let's see. So import bank transactions, this was on the 13th. So
yeah, that's good. Just if you could go back to that screen just for a moment from the last one, the 7th. Thank you. And
okay.
No, back to the header, the last screen, please.
Okay.
And describe in column 2 on the header, the description, and then column 3 in the header, the total amount adjusted, because one says 7,254 and the other one says 7,407. Explain those two differences, please.
So I have 7758.42 right now in the deposit. I also have a charge total of $351.05. Okay, leaving me with a net of $74.07.37. The problem being, Shopify has told me we're depositing $72.54.73, and by the way, you are missing a transaction. Because we are missing a transaction, I'm going to come over here. Let's see, 47. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take my disbursement. And if I have the right one, let's just double check. I'm just going to simulate it by putting it here. And note that when I find that transaction or I put it into Acumatica and then add it to my payments here, which they clearly haven't done yet, I just added the amount in so you could see once they found this payment, once they went out and figured out why they don't have it in their Acumatica, they could come over here, they could add it, and the addition would then put them in balance. So this
is Corey, excuse me, Matt. Corey, I wanted to show you that because this is exactly what your Excel spreadsheet cannot do, right? Because it's in Acumatica. As you do the troubleshooting, you're able to update all the rippling effects of this type of issue as it relates to your books. And our users find this extremely powerful.
Yeah, I mean, our solution right now is to clear the transaction and then write an offsetting journal entry to reconcile the discrepancy.
Right.
Sure. This is where I want to point something out that's very important. Let's go to something that's been released. No, don't touch the production environment. The other cool thing about this is, let's just go to, I don't know, let's just pick one. Sure, you can. Really, any will do. I'm going to open this payment. It's a prepayment. So this is a website prepayment on some goods. Now, this is really, really neat. When I go to the financial details and I look at a payment, I can also see the payment and the date, the deposit and the date of the deposit right from the payment. So your payment list can also reflect just adding these two fields, which already exist in the tables. You add those to your generic inquiry, and boom, your grid right there. Hey, what's made it to a deposit and what hasn't? So this is all happening in real time. And if you were to remove it from the deposit, that would disappear. If you were to void the deposit, that would disappear. Now, other cool thing, this is pretty neat, is that I just lost my train of thought. Getting overly excited. Sorry. Well, there was something cool I was going to tell you, and I completely. I get excited about this stuff because it actually is really awful work, and seeing it all work like 99-point-something% of the time without human intervention makes me happy. So.
And we've been at this for a while. So a couple of the other neat features are sometimes you'll have a hiccup in the API file, right? It just doesn't come in for whatever reason, or it comes in half partially.
Thank you.
So
that was a cool thing.
Yeah. So we have user tools that when you deploy the tool, buttons appear in the banking screens within Acumatica to complement the ePSR tool. And one of them is just delete the deposit and start over, right? Instead of messing around with, I have 5,000 transactions. For whatever reason, only 3,000 came in from the bank, right? You delete it, you start over. Well, other things like, Matt, you're much better at this, please.
Yeah, we operate under the onesie twosie exception is done by hand. When it starts to grow, the connector was messed up, my elbow hurts when it rains, whatever the excuse is. When it's all messed up, finance shouldn't have to then also clean up whatever happened on the operations side. You send it back to operations. You say, you guys need to run this stuff because, all our data is missing, etc. That's where, c'est la vie, que sera, sera, hit the reset button after they're done fixing whatever they're doing, and it deletes the deposit and starts all over and reprocesses, given good data. Because there's no reason to have a tool that does all this work and then allows for upstream things that could have occurred to totally screw you up. And now the person who had planned on spending 10 minutes on cash accounting is now, half a day in to screwing around in Excel again. That's not acceptable. So, there is a reset button, and we are rolling out. We're rolling out the capability to also, and I'm showing you, actually, I might have timed out here. It's been a while since I was in here. Having these same settlement screens in your instance with all of the settlement transactions. And the cool thing about it is the settlement transactions have all been what's called denormalized into a structure that works for, and then I wasn't. Okay. So I'm going to open this up again. And what you're going to see is this is on directly on the Acumatica site. And every single provider type, when we collect it, is formatted and structured into a single format you can work with, that we can work with, that everyone can agree upon. And it does have some basis in the worst of the worst, which is Amazon.com. And if you, I forget who was on the call that was doing the Excel files, but quantities, SKUs, shipment numbers, channels, all that stuff is incorporated in this as the worst case scenario. Now, most of the non-aggravating providers don't provide it, and we don't need it, and it's great. But we have basically put everything into a single data format that can be worked with. So depending on the provider, there might be differing types of information that they provide for, like, here's MasterCard, Visa, DP for Chase, I think Payment Tech and Chase is like deposit versus refund. Refunds are at the end. So that's the other cool thing. And if I want to rerun something, I simply put it back to new. Our system, and this is the newer system, is our system is going to reset everything from here, as well as give you some of the cool stuff that lets you do more reporting on your end. So we're doing everything with off-site matching because our matching engine is as close to metal that SQL will let us get. So we can find 1,000 payments out of a stack of 100,000 and match them in seconds, which is contra to a one-by-one matching engine. We use the power of Microsoft SQL Server in order to do so. I think that's all I have. So I'll open it up. Questions?
Hey, Matt, this is Garrett with Mission.
Yes.
Just to take a few steps back, you guys really emphasized that this is, kind of under the hood is this rules-based engine.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that there's some kind of UI where you can establish these rules, the user can establish the rules. And maybe you already showed this, but I'd love to see what that looks like.
Right now, we have the rules-based engine is something that we can work with together to update, but because it's working directly against SQL, it has to be approved to go in.
Okay.
But because you can see,
so you guys established those rules.
I'm sorry?
So you guys established those rules.
Yeah, we can work together to make as many rules as you want. I think our record right now is like 16 or 17 on a single type.
Okay. Got it.
Most people don't mess with them. Very few people have the experience you have with, like, the Amazon file. So most people would rather us just do it, and we've done enough of them. I mean, right now, we've done just under 45 million for them. Let's see. We pushed 150 million. So there's 2,600 deposits for $150 million there, 30,000 deposits for 45 million there. We've done a lot of this. We've got a lot of experience. I don't know how many this 3,400 adds up to because they don't have a total in it, but I can check other ones. But we've literally done probably, I'm guessing last time I checked, we were probably at probably around, I want to say $1/3 billion worth of deposits, somewhere in there. So
okay.
I think we're at about 42,000 deposits total, or 44,000 deposits total that we've done in the past few years. But yeah, I'm happy to work with you folks if there's special things you want to do with it. But for the most part, we've established the rules because they're pretty consistent. The provider makes the rules, especially with Amazon.
Sure.
Amazon makes the rules, whether you like it or not. They're like the mafia. You have no choice. This is what you will do, and you will like it.
So this sort of leads me into a few other questions about kind of like long-term implications of a solution like this?
Sure.
It sounds like it's definitely not a set it and forget it type tool. We'll have to engage with your team kind of long term for support of this tool.
We don't get a whole lot of support. Once it's established with the general rules, there really isn't. It just every day from like 3 in the morning until about 9 at night, it just picks up and processes whatever you ask. So once your rules are established, unless something really significant changes, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't
so like
Amazon
changes the formatting of their settlement files or something like that, which I'm sure they do.
That's not me. No, that's not me. Our organization handles the settlement APIs and the formats and things like that. You shouldn't care about any of that. We keep up with the different providers and the API versions and how often, or in the case of like PayPal, how never update their formats. So you shouldn't have to worry about any of that. Our translation layer on the front end, when we grab that, and we'll grab it via FTP or API or however the provider provides access to settlement data or settlement reports, we grab it and we do all the translations. So if it changes, that's not on you at all. That's on us because it changes for everyone.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding how this is set up. Do you have a visualization of your tech stack, or is this just like a package that's installed into our Acumatica instance? How are you updating it? Are we patching this?
Okay. We have a SaaS server because some of the providers actually require they require like VPN connections or certificates between the servers because of the sensitivity of some of the data. We house that in our cloud. From that cloud, then we communicate to yours the already corrected, translated, manipulated data. So all of these different formats out in cyberspace find their way to that nice package on our end. Okay. And then our end is an Acumatica to Acumatica bridge, which then puts the data.
Okay.
So we're a SaaS solution with a small footprint, package footprint on your instance. So we're not taking up your Acumatica license space or your processing power.
That's okay. Good to know. That's super helpful. Then another question. Sorry if I keep dominating. No, that was a sorry to Corey because I know he probably has a handful of questions as well.
Here to answer them all.
This does seem just kind of database heavy. Like you guys are adding a bunch of fields. Like what does this look like as Acumatica changes versions and we have to upgrade and, remapping database and all that fun stuff? You don't have to have any of the settlement data on your instance at all. In fact, prior to version 5, we didn't even offer it. You can just have us house the data and grab your payments, do all of the matching, figure out if I go to a settlement right now, let's just go look at this. So here's the payments. So this is the Acumatica deposit on my side. This guy's Acumatica deposit is exactly this with these charges individually. See, so we construct everything and then at some point we send it over to you. You don't have to have any of this in your Acumatica. You don't have to bloat your database with any of this because we've specialized to do it on our end anyways. Some customers are opting, it really depends on the accountant. The accountants that really want to see every tiny little detail, even though 99% of their deposits are always to the penny reconciled. And then you've got other folks that are more pragmatic and they say, look, I don't need to see any details behind the settlement. Are you matching my stuff right? Is it matching my bank statement? Do I have any outstanding stuff? Then I really don't care what you
do on your back end. I just want my Acumatica to be right. You got two different kinds of accountants. It takes all kinds, man. So it's up to you. You don't have to have this package. In fact, this package has almost no code. Without this piece of the package, it has a reset button and 4 fields. That's it. Okay. In fact, it compiles itself with every version of Acumatica you go forward with. So everything else is web services. It's all a contract between our site and your site. There's almost no footprint whatsoever, and there is no real addition to the database whatsoever, period. In fact, the records, I'll give you an interesting tidbit. If you use the import bank transaction screen, the record is 175% of the size to do these in those lists where you process bank transaction screens. It is like 167, between 167 and 175% of the size of this record in the bank deposit. So this is actually smaller than processing it in import bank transactions. Down at the SQL level.
Okay.
Sorry, totally nerded out for those of you who.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. So, one last question, and then I'm going to hand it over to Corey. Sure. So, the previous screen we were just on, or as we're looking at this demo and we're seeing all this stuff, you mentioned we don't need to have this in our Acumatica instance. Sure. Does that mean that we access this screen, like this screen right now that we're seeing? Is this essentially your software on your end, and do we have access to this, separately from our Acumatica instance? No. Or help me better understand
if you want access to this, we push it into your licensed Acumatica. Okay. This is really just a nicety. So you can see it.
Sure.
We would do the same thing. Like, this is not my Acumatica, and this is the customer's Acumatica, and this is the data. But yes, there's a lot of data that once it's been deposited, the need to pull the settlement data is unnecessary. Now, access to just raw data is in a Dropbox. So as it processes the raw data is then dumped into a Dropbox, which then, if you guys really want to go grab it and have it not loading your Acumatica, you just want to have the data, it actually is in a Dropbox we can open to your user for your account. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that helps.
And when you say, this is Corey, when you say the data, I mean, are we just talking about essentially, like, let's just say we're talking about Amazon, it's just that settlement export. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. What we pull, Amazon's API pull is really not an API. It's can I please have this file?
Sure.
And so we grab the file, the same thing that you would grab via the interface, and we just chew on it. And we just chew through it, and then we set it aside, and then we eventually archive it and get rid of it over time. But yeah. Okay. It doesn't really help us because everybody has a different idea of what the structure should be. Multi-line, it's going wide, it's going tall. In order to make a nice, concise way of processing this, first thing you have to do is get some sort of agreement on what a settlement is and what its transactions look like. So that is this step.
Okay.
You can certainly send these things as reports if you don't want them clunking up your database, because quite honestly, I don't recommend this unless you really need it. The reset button is more than enough, but if you need it, we have it.
Sure. Well, I just, thinking through how we're managing, just using Amazon as continuing to use that as the example. I know for me, historically, after deriving what information I need to reconcile a period, I'm never looking back at the settlement statements.
It goes in a folder somewhere, and you never open it again.
And we don't look at it again. But just thinking forward, if we went with a more simplistic implementation approach, and then for some reason, our priorities changed, or we changed our philosophy, and we wanted to start looking at the more complex data like you have here, is that an entirely new implementation, or is that something you can turn on?
No, actually, that's an easy answer. Everything processes with or without that pretty much the same. The difference is the processor either has the bookends that say, oh, hey, they've got the settlement screens, push the data, pull the updates, and then at the end, push what I changed. So the center, the core, remains, there is no code in the middle that does this processing that has any respect to whether or not you have these. So nothing changes except data flow between the two sites.
Okay.
If you guys,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've got, I mean, just because of how intimately familiar we are with what your engine's doing. I don't mean from a structural standpoint. I just mean, what goes in and what comes out of it. It's definitely something that we're interested in. I mean, obviously the next questions for us are implementation time, kind of what the lift looks like, both from your side of the equation and Kenzium's and ours. And then also kind of like, what does the fee structure look like? I know those are complex questions, the answers, but do you guys have?
Those are easy. Talk to Jim.
Okay.
You want me to? Would you like to see the price? Is that correct?
Well, yeah.
All right. So there we go.
How does it structure? What do the timelines look like?
Yeah, sure.
Before you do that, Jim, I can answer the implementation stuff. Matt, stuff. Just send me the Excel file because that tells us just how complex you're going to be, and I might have rules, or I might. You know what I mean? That might speed it up real fast. I mean, if you've already got an example of how you process them today in Excel, you and I are speaking the same language. We've done this enough that we can probably really crank through these.
So
go ahead. That was all.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. So our base price for the Acumatica Advanced Edition is $3,450. And that base price means you're at the M1 level, which is the base level of Acumatica, which is 3,000 transactions a month. If you go from M1 to M2 to M3, we ratchet up $500 a tier. So let's say you're at M3. Then the price would be $4,450. So larger companies with more complex processes pay more than smaller companies. In addition, we start off with one payment source, PayPal, Amazon, etc., Shopify. But let's say we've got Shopify, PayPal, fulfilled by Amazon, and Amazon Marketplace. That would be 3 additional. So they're $500 each. And let's say that we've got 2 stores, so I have 1 additional store. So now my base price has gone from $3,450 a year to $6,450 a year. Okay. In terms of the implementation, as Matt said, processors like Shopify and Affirm and PayPal that we've already done, typically we budget 2 to 4 hours per existing processor. Our experience is that the one time is an implementation fee. Our experience is that we not only work on just the core implementation, but oftentimes there becomes accounting type questions that we work with the customer and the VAR on, and we're very VAR centric. So all of this goes through Kenzium. So sometimes there's accounting questions on how to set up the clearing accounts and how to account for in the ledger the various fees, etc. From my experience, I'm not an accountant. I can tell that you guys are more sophisticated than others that we've dealt with, so there's going to be less cost in terms of the implementation regarding that, and we just deal with the accounting items on a time and material basis. Final note, We just were asked by one of our customers, we're deploying it right now. Their bank was Chase. Well, we did not have a plugin for Chase. And Chase does things a lot different than PayPal, a lot different than Braintree, etc. So there we give an estimate for a new processor of what we think, but we deal with that on a time and material basis, and we keep the customer informed. Sometimes we might take us 2 or 3 hours to go work with the provider and get a notion of how they provide files. The case of Chase that I bring up, because they've got actually 2 or 3 files that constitute a single deposit, unlike many others where there's a single file to a single deposit. So that added a level of complexity in terms of onboarding a new credit merchant. So that's how our pricing works.
In your experience, so we bank with, I would say, a large regional bank based here
Yep.
in the Midwest. It's not a Wells or a Chase. Is it typically more complex the bigger the bank gets, or is it the opposite of that?
All right, if I can answer that. We don't care what bank you use. It's the provider that's doing the processing. So if we're talking about AuthNet, AuthNet will deposit to whatever bank you have. It really comes down to the payment processor or where you're getting your settlements from, not where you're depositing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
So your regional bank really has nothing to do with this, except that's the cash account we're putting the money into.
Sure. Okay.
So no problem.
What this is really maybe too in the weeds, so apologies. But just something that kind of came to my mind. You guys are talking about FBA versus FBM, essentially kind of having 2 different payment methods for the fulfillment method, it sounds like.
Yeah, can I correct that one? Because FBA and FBM are the same thing. What Jim means is Amazon Pay versus Marketplace.
Okay, got it.
One is a payment provider, and it's just a single line thing. The other is obviously Marketplace, and they might ship it. You might ship it. It doesn't really matter. You get the same file.
Yeah, we use both. So Amazon Pay is an authorized payment type for our Shopify site, but we sell on Amazon as well. So that's the other side of it. So we have both of those.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. So in our
that's it.
Yeah, so in our world, that would be a payment source, right? In that case, there's 2 from Amazon.
Yeah, but fulfilled by Amazon and if they're coming out of the same deposit, whether they fulfill it or you fulfill it, if it's out of the same account, it's still the same settlement file.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
It's usually confused because of the Amazon Pay thing. So
one other question, and I'm not in the weeds like Corey is on this, so Corey actually might be able to answer this. We have a unified North American Amazon account, and we are technically selling, not in volume, but we are selling in Canada and Mexico in the local currency. And is the payout, are we using separate files for those 2 countries, or is it all coming out of?
There's separate settlements.
There's separate settlements. So do you guys support? I mean, those would be 3 different distinct, and we actually don't have payment methods set up for those.
I have to look at what you have in Acumatica, but we'd have to set something up that's different. Something has to be different. There has to be at some step a translation from into your local currency. So I'd have to look at it though.
The settlements typically, the settlements, I think they typically include what their conversion was on.
They do the conversion. Yeah.
Is it all going to the same bank account?
Yeah.
Then really we're just processing 3 different of the same type of settlement, and we would count that as a store link because there are 3 different Amazons, but it's one provider. Does that make sense? So you wouldn't get double dinged. This is, we're using Amazon Marketplace, but we're using Amazon Canada, Amazon Mexico, and Amazon US.
Okay.
Because it would be three separate, and it is three separate deposits. When you look at the bank, you're not going to get like a sum of those. You're going to get three different ones that were represented by three separate settlement files, correct? That should be how it's manifest. We need an accountant?
No, I think that clarifies it for us.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
If you have questions on implementation length, the easiest way for me to make an assessment, since you guys do have like an Excel file where you've been disseminating, is to send me the Excel file that you did the dissemination, because I can interpret, having done that before, right, how the rules have to be. Because that's how it all started for me 5-6 years ago. So very familiar.
Okay.
And thank you so very much. I'm going to stop